All right, let's get into some ayahuasca. This is my first experience. This takes us back to 2017, which, on an interesting note, I'm told was a time that awakened a large group of people, or some group of people, to the ascension process. And I don't know if that's how accurate that is, but it is interesting because, as I've said before, someone who doesn't come from that experience, how I was turned on to that and how I got there seems more than coincidental, but that's up to consideration. So friends of ours, a group of friends, we had been, a few of us really, came down to a few people. We're talking about what this is about. We're investigating it. We're doing some research. And obviously one of the main concerns is this safe? And, obviously this isn't a regulated industry, and you're putting yourself in the hands of some people that you don't know, and you're doing something that, is natural to feel maybe dangerous. I mean, that's certainly normal. And we're all adults, upstanding people. We're working, we have families, and the last thing we're looking to do is put ourselves into a situation where we might get harmed. So that's a natural concern that I put out to people, because that's going to be on a lot of people's minds as they're thinking about whether to do this or not. And I'll say this as a general comment. Yes, it's not a regulated industry yet. And in fact, one of the main components in ayahuasca, in the plant, and I'll get into that, is dimethyltryptamine, DMT. And that's a Schedule 1 controlled substance. So there is that to think about. But I'll say generally, and this goes back, over 8 years now, at this point in time, there's so many more people that have been schooled in the Aya space, legitimately schooled, even though the legality in the US is still in the state that it is. But the people in the space, I want to say, as a general statement, it is a very safe space. I haven't heard of any incidents of anyone having a life-threatening or psychological situation having taken ayahuasca that it should be concerning to anybody. Obviously, sometimes these experiences can be difficult, but in terms of your overall safety, in a general saying, I've done ayahuasca with a number of different people, and despite their differences and some idiosyncrasies in how ceremonies are conducted, the one common thread that I've found in all of my journeys is that the people conducting them are educated, they are committed, the spaces are filled with only people that care about you and that want to help you. Everything is safe and filled with just peace and love and people just trying to help one another. And it's so there's really nothing to be afraid of. And I wouldn't hesitate to try a new experience, with someone who was recommended or, has gained some reputation in conducting ceremonies. Having said that, you have to do your research. You have to make sure you get previous recommendations. That's always the best way. We did our research. We didn't know anybody personally, but certainly the organization had been around. And so that's just an overall sort of safety kind of disclosure point that I wanted to make for people that are considering it. It's getting easier and easier now. And in fact, there are some organizations that are churches that have received exemptions from the DEA to be able to dispense a Scheduled 1 substance like ayahuasca. And the other thing to note is that Aya is a brew. It is a brew of a plant and a root of another plant, and they're mixed together. And that's what makes the ayahuasca brew. None of these, it's all natural. And I've never heard of any instance where there's like a scare of fentanyl, or that the material, that the drink, that the brew has ever been dangerous or was contaminated in any way to cause anybody any problem. There's no fentanyl or anything like that going around in ayahuasca. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think it's just a natural substance and made by people in the community, or imported. Actually, there is some of it is imported legally through customs that is made, and then the liquid is then somehow dehydrated and shipped into the US legally. There is a law in the US called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and which recognizes religious groups' freedom to use sacred sacraments and substances in the pursuit of their religious practice. And ayahuasca, coming from the Amazon and different parts of the world, it's definitely been steeped in religious ceremony. So that's a little bit of the primer. So we decide to do it, and this is in Arizona. And this experience is going to be conducted in the desert down around Tucson. And so we decide to do it. And the thing about Aya is that when you make a conscious decision that you're going to do it, the experience of ayahuasca actually starts at that very moment. Even though when you schedule it, it may be a month to 2 months out, the actual commitment that you're going to partake in the medicine is actually the starting point from when Mother Aya begins the process of healing you. And it's your commitment to that process. It's your voluntary commitment to wanting to help yourself that really is the driving force that lets ayahuasca do its work with you. It all stems from the individual's desire to improve and to face fears, to overcome, and to better themselves. And it begins at that point. There's also a diet called the dieta that you're supposed to follow to sort of cleanse the body, preparation for the ceremony. And obviously that surrounds, food. You're supposed to give up heavy foods and meats and just unnatural food. And to eat healthy and clean in preparation really helps set the body up for the ceremony, and I think for the best experiences. And as you get closer, pretty much like the last week or 10 days before the ceremony, you're supposed to give up smoking, all kinds of, smoking, alcohol, and some foods in particular that might interfere negatively with the medicine so that you can have the best experience and allow it to take effect. And then the other part of the commitment is to wean yourself off of lower energies, call it lower vibratory energies, like bad things that are going on in the news or things that are going on in the world that just flood our daily televisions, phones, all sorts of media, things that are so divisive. If you can tune those out, sort of turn them off, that sort of puts you in a state of peace where you can focus on yourself and help set you up for the best ceremony experience. So you do all that. We commit and we're going to go, and the day comes and we're driving down, and the ceremony starts. You get there about 8 o'clock or so at night, and you start to meet everybody. And this was, this is going back 8 years. So we get down to, this is off the grid. I mean, you're driving in a car like it's in the desert, but there's no real fixed good roads here. Certainly no paved roads, kind of like dirt trail, and it's all bumpy, and you're driving off the grid, off the highway. And by the time you get out there to the ceremony space, you really can't see anything else. You're out in nature. And not every ceremony is like this, but this is my first experience, and it was really wonderful. And basically you show up, and there's like a makeshift sort of, picture like a jungle gym sort of, structure with like a tarp-like, covering. I think that particular ceremony spot has sort of upgraded that now, and this was in February in 17, so it was very cold in the desert, especially at night, and there was a main heat source inside, and so we go in and we start to introduce ourselves, start to talk to people, and basically it's a group of about 15 of us, and then there was the head shaman, who is assisted by a handful of facilitators that will help everybody through the ceremony itself. And so you begin to talk, ask some questions, find out about people's experiences, and finally you get down to it. And everybody has like a mat, and you sort of sit around in a circle, and the ceremony starts. There's some singing and some short prayer, and then it's time to drink. And one by one, each person comes up to the altar that was created and get on your knees in a kneeling position, take your cup, and you drink. Ayahuasca tastes horrible. It ain't good. But the really important thing, I think, from a ceremonial standpoint, from what's the word, I think really of a symbolic nature, is that you're going into the unknown. You're voluntarily telling yourself, look, I'm going to do this. I believe this is going to be for my best, but you're certainly entering this space without experience and knowing what's going to happen. And you have some reasonable expectation that some funky stuff might happen, and not all of it may be so comfortable. But knowing, voluntarily entering a situation like that, knowing that you're going to encounter some difficulty or likely to, and doing it anyway because you know that at the end you're going to be better off. And in that way, I think ayahuasca is a microcosm of life, where you're making a commitment to do something hard because you know it will better you in the end. And that's what life is about. So you take the drink and everyone goes through it. You go back to your mat, sit, wait about 40 or 45 minutes. And they usually have a second call or a bell. There are those who feel called, and I think most people do. And I recommend that you should, no matter what you may be feeling after that first cup, you should go in for the second cup, there for the full experience. And I recommend people to take it. This is not something to do halfway. Can't take too much. Medicine will take care of you, but you certainly need to have enough in you to be able to get the most out of the experience. So that's what I fully recommend. And the time you take the second cup, you may start to feel the effects. And certainly afterwards, a short time later, you know that people are starting to get into it. The Aya experience in the group, it's a very interesting thing because it is a very individual process, but the group is very much a part of it at the same time. Your experience, your journey is yours, but the energy of the group and the people around you contribute to the process and create the environment that I think have this sort of collective healing together, as much as it's a personal journey. And then, of course, and people have heard, there's a purge that goes along where you're basically throwing up or you're in the bathroom. By the way, out in the desert, there was no bathroom. So it's all part of it too. Not all experiences are set up like that. I've done it in an indoor setting where if you need a bathroom, and I have, there is a bathroom. But the purge, when you're sort of vomiting, is part of that experience. That is a wonderful thing too, because Aya is the best cleanse you could ever have. And I think when you purge, you're actually purging negative energy, purging toxins in the body. Other Aya will direct the medicine to help everyone in the best way for them. You get what you need out of it. You should definitely have intentions when you go in and things that you think about, things that like a purpose. And usually, like myself, and I'll be getting into that in the future, will have a reason that that they're called to it. And so to really focus on that intention. Everybody has a journey experience that is relevant to the intention that brought them to the medicine. So that's why I say, and it's typically said, that Mother Aya will give you what you need. Sometimes that's not what you think you want. So the purge experience, which I had, and it came on pretty strongly, and everyone has a bucket, and you feel sort of the typical sense to purge that everyone's sort of been familiar with. You've gotten sick. It's really not unlike that. So I'm heaving into this bucket like one after the other. And after it was done, though, I'm not sick. I feel really cleansed, really light, and it allows the medicine to really take over. It's getting really hot out here, so I'm going to pause and take a sip. I'm going to go in half. Okay, so now let's get into the ceremony. I came to ayahuasca initially because I had this tremendous sense of anger that had really built up over a years-long battle that I'll get into at another time when it's appropriate. But suffice to say that I was filled with anger, rage. And during the ceremony, I saw myself sort of like in a dreamlike vision that you might have, like when you're in that twilight state, almost like a daydream. And I came together with the two main people that had caused me a lot of this pain and suffering. And I came together with them almost like head to head, like three of us. And instantly, I had this realization that the pain that these people had caused me I felt the source of where it was coming from. I felt the pain that these people were going through in their own lives that led them to be in a position to hurt me. Now, I don't know what that pain was. I don't know exactly, but I felt it. I had this visceral feeling exactly what it was to be them and what someone has to go through in order to be able to do that to another person. And that harkens back to the saying that is often said that hurt people hurt people. But instead of the typical ego standpoint, the ego response where I don't care about that person or these people, they deserve it. Ayahuasca removes that from you. And I felt compassion for the people that were causing me pain. And in this vision, I said to them, you can go on and continue to do what you do because I'm finally strong. I will make it. And I feel compassion for you that you're going through pain that's causing you to hurt me. And that's what ayahuasca is. It takes you out of that normal human response and allows you to view from the outside a situation that from a perspective that you normally wouldn't have. And you can come together with people and say, I know you've hurt me. I understand why, and it's okay because I'll be all right. I can't describe the weight that was lifted at that very moment, that I didn't have to be angry anymore, that I was free of that. Because the truth is that when you get bogged down in the blame game of what this one did to you or what these people did, it can become all-consuming. And the only person that hurts is you. And the best gift that I've given to myself ever is the freedom that ayahuasca can provide that allows you to let go of that because it's garbage. And when you let go of the blame and the anger, it makes room for new stuff to come in. And you can choose what those things are. And hopefully those new choices that you can make bring positive energy in. And so the ceremony goes from about 9 o'clock when you start till about 4 in the morning. And then you're supposed to get some sleep for a couple of hours. But I can't describe the elation that I felt after having this freeing experience, that I was so excited that as everyone finally drifted off into sleep, I just had this smile on my face, this grin, this elation, just indescribable happiness that I was given this gift. And I remember when we were leaving the next morning and people were getting back into their cars, you know, the nice thing, we had this wonderful fruit because obviously you get so dehydrated. And we had this wonderful fruit and we're talking to people and people are saying, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. And how are we ever going to be the same again? This is the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. And that feeling doesn't go away for quite some time. I was literally felt like I was, when I was walking, that I was floating and just floating on air. And you have this lightness about you that the medicine gives you, where you see things in this heightened way following ceremony, where you can appreciate even the smallest things just seem wonderful because you've been given this new gift. And so letting go of anger was a wonderful thing that's happened to me. It's something, and I say this and I'll get back to this, ayahuasca and other psychedelics, they provide you a toolbox. And every time you have an experience, you have a new insight, you get a new tool, and you can put that tool in your box. And this is how I come back to how you integrate psychedelics, the psychedelic experience into everyday life, because it doesn't end at the experience, it's just the beginning. You can go back to that tool, and I have gone back to that tool many times when I feel myself getting angry, to say, this is not a good use of energy, this is not necessary, let's take the tool out and let's figure this out. That doesn't mean that ayahuasca makes you perfect or that you're going to have a ceremony and all your problems in your life is going to be fixed. No, not at all. What Aya does is empower you as the individual to be able to look at a situation differently than you did before, to be able to evaluate it differently and make different choices about how you will respond to situations that you don't have any control over in your life. And it is the decision-making and the response that you take that makes your life better. And so each ceremony has given me a different tool, a different perspective. And over the course of time, I've used these in different ways. And that's what we're going to be continuing to talk about. But that is my first experience. That's sort of how it started, how I got into it. And I'm really enjoying putting this out, and I'm really curious about how people are going to respond to it. And I look forward to coming back with the next one.